My name is Rachel, I'm 38 years old, and exactly 1 week ago I completed the most elaborate revenge plan anyone could imagine. A plan that took 15 years to execute. A plan that completely destroyed the life of the woman who ruined mine. If you're listening to this, it's because I decided to share my story before the police discover everything. Before they realize that every misfortune that happened to Victoria Chin in the last 5 years wasn't coincidence. It was me. And I don't regret anything. Before I continue, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. Stories like this, of calculated revenge and justice taken into one's own hands, are rare to hear. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from: New York, Los Angeles, London, or anywhere else in the world. To understand why I did what I did, I need to go back 15 years. To the day Victoria Chin destroyed my life in a single afternoon. I was 23 years old, recently graduated in architecture from the University of Illinois. My graduation was with honors, my final project won awards, and I was on top of the world. I worked at the most prestigious firm in Chicago, Chin and Associates. Yes, the firm had her surname on the door. I had just been promoted to junior architect after only 8 months as an intern. It was rare. It was special. Everyone said I had a bright future ahead. I was engaged to the love of my life, Daniel Mitchell. We met in college, dated for 4 years, and he proposed on my graduation day. We had just bought our first apartment, a small but charming loft in Lincoln Park. We were planning the wedding for the following summer. Life was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Victoria was a senior partner at the firm. She was 35 at the time, beautiful in an intimidating way, black hair always perfectly styled, designer clothes, high heels that made an authoritative sound when she walked through the hallways. Confident, powerful, respected. Everyone admired her. I admired her too. I wanted to be like her someday, successful, independent, in control of my own life. Until the day I discovered who she really was behind that impeccable facade. It all started when I won an important project, the renovation and modernization of the Chicago Natural History Museum. It was a $15 million project, the kind of thing normally only senior architects handled. But the client had liked my portfolio, specifically my graduation project that blended historic architecture with modern sustainable design. Victoria called me into her office when she heard I had gotten the project. "Congratulations, Rachel," she said, smiling. "It's quite a project for someone so young. You'll need guidance, of course. I'll personally supervise." I was flattered. Victoria Chin herself was going to mentor me. It was an honor. I worked on that project for 6 intense months. Slept 4 hours a night. Spent weekends at the office. Daniel complained he barely saw me anymore. But I was obsessed. I wanted that project to be perfect. And it was. The design I created was revolutionary. It preserved the building's historical integrity while incorporating cutting-edge sustainable technology. Solar panels integrated into the original structure. Geothermal cooling system. LED lighting that mimicked natural light to protect the artifacts. It was my dream project. My masterpiece. 1 week before the final presentation to the client, Victoria called me into her office again. This time she wasn't smiling. "Rachel," she said, her voice cold and professional, "there's been a change of plans. I need you to pass all the museum project files to me. I'll be presenting it to the client personally." I felt my stomach sink. But I prepared the entire presentation. I practiced for weeks. I thought I was going to present it. "Change of plans," she repeated emotionlessly. "The client specifically requested a senior architect for the final presentation. You understand, right? It's a 15 million project. They want experience." I didn't understand. It didn't make sense. The client chose me specifically. Why would they suddenly want someone else? But Victoria was my superior. My mentor. I obeyed. I passed all the files to her, every drawing, every specification, every note I had made during 6 months of intense work. "Great," she said, barely looking at me as she transferred the files to her computer. "You did good work here, Rachel. Someday you'll reach this level." I left her office feeling strange. Something wasn't right. But I was young, naive. I trusted her. The presentation was the following Wednesday. I wasn't invited. Victoria said it would be only senior executives. I spent the entire day anxious, waiting for news. When Victoria returned to the office that afternoon, she was radiant. She gathered the entire team in the conference room. "I have great news," she announced. The Natural History Museum project was enthusiastically approved. The client was so impressed with the innovative design that they increased the budget by 20% and gave a personal bonus of $50,000 for exceptional work. Everyone applauded. I waited for her to mention me to thank me for the work. But she said nothing. She presented the project as if it were entirely hers. After the meeting, I confronted her privately. Victoria, you didn't mention that I designed that project. She looked at me as if I were a child being irrational. You worked on the project under my supervision, Rachel. That's how it works. Juniors do the grunt work, seniors take the credit and the client. You'll understand when you're older. But that was my project. My idea. My design. Your design? She laughed, a cold laugh that made me feel small. Honey, you work for me. Everything you create here belongs to the firm. Belongs to me. Did you really think a $15 million client was going to trust their building to a 23-year-old junior? But they chose me. Before you intervened. Her face hardened. Watch your tone, Rachel. You're starting to sound ungrateful. I gave you an opportunity many juniors would kill for. I gave you guidance, resources, the chance to work on a prestigious project. And now you're complaining. I felt tears burning my eyes. I just want recognition for my work. Welcome to the real world, honey, she said, returning to her files, dismissing me. You think you're going to get anywhere being this naive? I have the contacts, I have the reputation, I have the name on the door. You're just a replaceable junior. There are dozens like you who would love to have your job. I left her office trembling with rage and humiliation. But I thought, okay, I learned a hard lesson. That's the corporate world. I'll work even harder, build my own reputation, and someday I won't be replaceable anymore. I was wrong. Victoria hadn't finished with me. Not even close. I went to HR the next day. Calmly explained the situation. Showed emails proving all the conceptual work was mine. Showed initial drafts with my name on them. Asked only that my name be included in the project credits. It was the biggest mistake of my life. 2 days later, I was called to the HR director's office. Victoria was there, sitting calmly, with a perfectly calibrated expression of false concern. Rachel, the director began, looking uncomfortable, some serious irregularities have been brought to our attention. Irregularities? I repeated, confused. Victoria sighed dramatically. I didn't want to have to do this, Rachel. I really liked you. But when I started investigating after your HR complaint, I discovered disturbing things. My heart started racing. What things? The director opened a folder. Falsification of work hours. Use of company resources for personal projects. You charged 60 hours of work on the museum project in a week where, according to security records, you were only in the building 35 hours. That can't be right, I managed to say. I worked from home many nights. Without prior written authorization, which is against company policy, Victoria interrupted softly. And there's more. You used our expensive design software to work on personal projects. We found files on your work computer that clearly aren't for our clients. Those were practice exercises. I protested. Personal projects to improve my skills. Using our resources, the director said. Without permission. Rachel, these are serious violations of company policy. I looked at Victoria. She looked back at me with that expression of false concern. And that's when I understood. She had planted all of this. The irregularities in the hour records. The suspicious files on my computer. She had created false evidence and was now framing me. This is a lie, I said, my voice trembling. Victoria is doing this because I complained that she stole my work. Victoria made a pained expression as if my words hurt her. Rachel, I understand you're upset for not getting the credit you think you deserve. But making false accusations against me won't help your situation. False. You know that project was mine. The project was done under my supervision, she said calmly, picking up her designer bag. You contributed, yes, as any junior would contribute. But the overall concept, the vision, the execution, all mine. And now you're trying to claim credit because you're jealous of the bonus. She looked at the HR director. I'm sorry to have to do this, Marcus, but I can't have someone this dishonest on my team. It's better we resolve this now. And that was it. I was fired that same day. Escorted out of the building as if I were a criminal. All my colleagues watching, whispering. But Victoria didn't stop there. She was just getting started. In the following days, I tried to get interviews at other architecture firms in Chicago. I had an impressive resume, good grades, a strong portfolio. It should be easy to find another job. But every place I went, I received the same response. We're sorry, but we don't think you're a good fit here. Took 2 weeks for me to discover why. A recruiter I knew from college took pity on me and told me the truth. Victoria had called every major architecture firm in the city. Told each of them that I was dishonest, that I stole other people's work and tried to claim credit that wasn't mine. Said I falsified documents and couldn't be trusted. She destroyed my reputation in the entire Chicago industry in a matter of days. I'm sorry, Rachel, the recruiter said. But Victoria Chin is very respected. If she says there are problems with you, no one will risk it. I was devastated. Years of school, all that hard work, my dreams of being an architect, all thrown away because a cruel woman decided to crush me for daring to question her authority. But as I said, Victoria hadn't finished. She was just warming up. Daniel worked in finance at an investment bank downtown. He was ambitious, hardworking, loyal. We had been together for 5 years. He was my rock during that horrible period of losing my job. Don't worry, he told me every night. You'll find something better. Victoria is a bitch, but she can't control the entire industry. But he was wrong. And Victoria was about to take him from me too. 3 weeks after my dismissal, Daniel went to a networking event for finance professionals. These were events he attended regularly, seeking contacts and business opportunities. Victoria was there. Of course she was. She moved in the same circles of Chicago's business elite. She approached him, introduced herself, started talking about business, investments, opportunities. Daniel told me later, said she was charismatic, impressive, but that he kept his distance because he knew who she was and what she had done to me. But Victoria was patient, persistent. She started appearing at every event Daniel attended. Always found an excuse to talk to him. Always with professional conversations, nothing inappropriate. Then the emails started. Interesting articles about finance she thought he'd like. Invitations to networking dinners with other influential professionals. Daniel went because they were legitimate business opportunities. I saw what was happening. I saw Victoria slowly inserting herself into my fiancé's life. I warned Daniel. I begged him to stay away from her. Love, I know you don't like her, Daniel would say. But this is work. These connections are important for my career. And she never mentions you. We keep everything strictly professional. But slowly, subtly, the work dinners started including just the two of them. The professional emails started having personal touches. Thought of you when I saw this. You'll love this restaurant. Loved our conversation yesterday. Daniel started coming home later. Started talking about Victoria with an admiration that made me feel sick. She really is impressive, you know? Built an empire from nothing. She destroyed my career. I would scream. I know, he'd say, hugging me. But separating the person from the professional. She really is talented. I was losing him. I could feel it. Victoria was doing it to me again, taking something I loved right under my nose and making it seem like I was being paranoid for complaining. 6 months after I was fired, Daniel called me to talk. I already knew what was coming. Rachel, he began, holding my hands, looking genuinely distressed. I love you. You know that. But I think we need to take a break. Because of her, I said. It wasn't a question. No, he insisted. It's because of us. You've been so bitter since you lost your job. So focused on hating Victoria. It's not healthy. And I need to focus on my career now. Your career with Victoria, I said, tears running down my face. It's work, Rachel. Just work. But it wasn't. A month after we broke up, a month after 5 years together, after planning a wedding, after buying an apartment together, Daniel was publicly dating Victoria. They appeared at all of Chicago's elegant social events. She posted photos of them on trips to Aspen, to the Caribbean, to Europe. Photos of them at dinners and restaurants where I could never afford even an appetizer. Photos of him in her spectacular penthouse with a view of Lake Michigan. Me. I was living in my mother's basement in a cheap suburb, working as a waitress at Denny's because no architecture firm in the entire region would hire me. Victoria Chin had taken my career, my fiancé, my home, my reputation, my future. Everything. She took everything from me. And she did it all smiling, posting on social media, showing off her perfect life built partly on the ruins of mine. It was on my 24th birthday that I made the decision. I was serving pancakes to rude customers at 7 in the morning, wearing a coffee-stained uniform, making $8 an hour plus tips. I grabbed my phone during my break and saw Victoria had posted a new photo. Her and Daniel at some charity gala, dressed like royalty. The caption said, "With my love on the most magical night, red heart." My love. The man who was my love first. And that's when something inside me broke. Or maybe that's when something new was born. A cold, hard determination like steel. Victoria Chin would pay. No matter how long it took. No matter what it cost. She would pay for every tear, every sleepless night, every humiliation, every destroyed dream. She would pay for everything. And unlike her, who destroyed my life in a matter of weeks, I was going to take my time. I was going to do it right. I was going to do it in a way she could never trace back to me. I was going to be patient, meticulous, perfect. Victoria Chin taught me that in this world the powerful crush the weak. While she was about to learn that sometimes the weak become strong. And their revenge is much, much sweeter. Folks, can you imagine the pain of watching someone destroy your entire life and then steal the person you love? If this story is affecting you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments tell me, do you believe in revenge or forgiveness? Where are you watching from? The first year was just survival and observation. I kept working as a waitress, saving every penny I could. I lived with my mother, ate cheap, didn't spend on anything besides basic necessities. But I was also studying Victoria obsessively. I created fake profiles on social media just to follow her. Read every post, saw every photo, observed every pattern. I learned where she ate, where she shopped, what places she frequented, who her friends were. I discovered she was ambitious above all else. Her architecture firm was her life. Her reputation was her greatest treasure. And Daniel was just an accessory. A pretty trophy to have on her arm at events. She didn't love him. I could see it. She liked having him, liked having proven she could steal even someone's fiancé. But there was no real love there. Just possession. That gave me hope. If she didn't truly love him, eventually he would see that too. Eventually he would get tired. I just needed to be patient. I also started planning my own transformation. I couldn't get revenge as Rachel Morrison, the failed architect Victoria destroyed. I needed to become someone else. Someone powerful. Someone Victoria would respect. Someone she would never suspect. So I did something drastic. I legally changed my name. Rachel Morrison became Lisa Parker. I chose Parker because it was my mother's maiden name, so there was still some family connection, but it was unrecognizable. Then I completely changed my appearance. My hair was light brown and long. I cut it short and dyed it dark blonde. I always wore glasses. I switched to contact lenses. My style was casual and young. I started dressing more sophisticated, more mature. I even changed the way I spoke. Eliminated slang. Practiced speaking more slowly, more deliberately. Changed my body language to be more confident, more authoritative. Within 6 months, when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman looking back. Rachel Morrison, the naive architect, was dead. Lisa Parker was being born. And Lisa Parker had plans. I went back to school. I used the little money I had saved plus student loans to get an MBA in business administration from Northwestern University. It was expensive, but it was necessary. I studied like someone possessed. Got the best grades, networked obsessively, participated in all career events. I specialized in project management and business development. And always kept Victoria in my sights. I monitored her life, her company, her relationship with Daniel. I knew every move she made. Daniel looked tired. The social media photos continued to be glamorous, but when you looked closely you could see it. He didn't smile with his eyes like he used to. Victoria always seemed to be looking at the camera, not at him. The relationship was cracking. Slowly, but it was. I just needed to wait. 3 years after being fired, 3 years living as Lisa Parker, I got my first real job again. A management consulting firm, not in architecture. It was a complete fresh start. I was good. Very good. I had something young Rachel never had: ruthless focus. Anger as fuel. A clear goal. I worked 80 hours a week. Took all the difficult projects no one wanted. Made connections with powerful people. Read all the business books, took all the online courses. absorbed everything about how to succeed in the corporate world. And it worked. In 5 years I was a senior manager. In 8 years a partner. In 10 years, I had my own division focused on consulting for creative companies, including architecture firms. It was perfect. I had created the exact tool I would need to enter Victoria's life without suspicion. And during all this time I maintained my vigilance over her. I saw Daniel and her complete 5 years together, then 7, then 10. I saw her firm grow. I saw her become even richer, more powerful, more arrogant. She was still the same cruel person who had destroyed my life. I discovered through discreet research that I hadn't been the only one. There were other young architects over the years whose work Victoria had stolen. Other lives she had casually ruined when they dared to question. No one did anything because she was too powerful, too respected, too rich. But I was going to do something. I was almost ready. 10 years after being fired, I was finally in the right position. Lisa Parker was a respected business consultant, with clients across the country with an impeccable reputation. I was confident, sophisticated, well-connected. I was exactly the type of person Victoria Chin would love to meet. It was time to begin. I used my connections to ensure my consulting firm made a pitch to Chin and Associates. Our specialty was helping creative companies optimize processes, increase profits, expand into new markets. Victoria's firm was doing well, but had problems: high turnover of junior employees, I wonder why, some workflow issues, some clients dissatisfied with delays. I made the pitch personally. I walked into that office, the same office from which I had been escorted in humiliation 10 years earlier, wearing a designer suit, carrying an Italian leather briefcase, with a confidence Rachel Morrison never had. Victoria was in the conference room. 10 years older, still beautiful, still intimidating. She looked at me without a hint of recognition. Why would she recognize me? Lisa Parker had nothing to do with young Rachel Morrison. Different name, different appearance, entirely different life. "Miss Parker," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "I've heard very good things about your work." I smiled. "Miss Chin, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Your reputation is impressive." "Thank you," she said, clearly flattered. "So, what do you think you can do for my firm?" I spent the next hour impressing her with analyses, strategies, ideas. I had done my homework, knew exactly which pain points to touch, which solutions to offer. By the end of the presentation, Victoria was smiling. That same confident smile she used with me 10 years ago. "Miss Parker, I think we have a lot to discuss. How about we have dinner this week? We can talk more about a possible partnership." "I'd love to," I replied, smiling back. And so it began. Victoria Chin had just invited her own destroyer into her life. And she had no idea. In the following months, I became a regular presence at Victoria's office. My company was officially hired to do a 6-month consultation. I was there 3 days a week, analyzing processes, interviewing employees, reviewing contracts and projects. I had access to everything. Financial files, client correspondence, employee records. Everything. And Victoria loved having me around. I was smart, successful, connected, exactly the type of person she admired. We started having lunch together regularly. She invited me to social events. Introduced me to her wealthy friends. "Lisa is absolutely brilliant," she would tell everyone. "She's transforming my business." I was just not in the way she thought. During those 6 months of official consulting, I did 2 things simultaneously. Publicly, I offered legitimate advice that improved some processes and increased efficiency. Victoria was satisfied, getting visible results. But privately, secretly, I was planting seeds of future destruction. I altered small things in contracts, clauses that seemed beneficial at the moment but would create legal problems years later. I connected Victoria with suppliers and subcontractors I knew were unreliable, but who offered prices too good to refuse. I suggested accounting practices that were technically legal but walked a dangerously fine line. And I documented everything. Everything. Took photos of documents when no one was looking. Made copies of emails. Recorded conversations when possible. I was building an arsenal of evidence I would one day use to destroy Victoria. But not yet. It was too early. I also started working on the second aspect of my plan. Daniel. He was still with Victoria after 10 years together. But it was obvious the relationship was an empty shell. They didn't live together. Never talked about marriage. At events, she often ignored him to network with more important people. I met Daniel accidentally at a corporate event. Victoria casually introduced us. Daniel, this is Lisa Parker, the brilliant consultant I told you about. Lisa, this is Daniel Mitchell, my boyfriend. The hesitation before boyfriend said everything. Daniel shook my hand. Nice to meet you, Ms. Parker. Please call me Lisa, I said, smiling. Victoria talks a lot about you. Why? Victoria barely mentioned Daniel to me. He was irrelevant to her now. Over the following months, whenever there was a social event where Victoria and Daniel were, I was there too. But I didn't flirt with him. Had nothing inappropriate. He was there. A friendly, interested presence who actually listened when he spoke. Victoria was always busy networking, making connections, paving her career. Daniel often stood alone, bored. That's when I started talking to him. About business, about Chicago, about hobbies. I discovered he liked basketball. We always used to watch together when we were together, but I pretended not to know this. I discovered he missed deep conversations, someone who truly listened to him. Victoria is always so busy, he told me one night, a few drinks later. Sometimes I feel like I'm just another item on her agenda. I'm sure it's not like that, I said, knowing perfectly well it was exactly like that. You're very kind, Lisa, he replied. But I know what it is. We've been together 10 years and still don't even live in the same house. He never has time. There's always another project, another client, another professional achievement that's more important. I planted subtle seeds. Never said anything directly against Victoria. That would be too obvious. Just asked questions that made him think. Have you two ever talked about marriage? Do you plan to have children someday? How do you feel being the partner of someone so focused on their career? Each question was like a small wound, making him question the relationship he probably already knew had been dead for years. 11 years after my dismissal, the official consultation ended. But my friendship with Victoria continued. We met for monthly lunches. She asked me for advice on business decisions, invited me to parties. I was now part of her inner circle. Trusted friend. A respected advisor. And she had no idea that every piece of advice I gave was carefully calibrated to eventually destroy her. Lisa, I'm thinking about expanding to Miami, she told me at one of our lunches. Do you think it's a good idea? Absolutely, I replied, knowing the Miami market was about to slow down, but that superficial analyses looked promising. You should invest heavily there. And what about the new design software that supplier is offering? It's expensive but promises to save a lot of time. Sounds like a great investment, I said, knowing that specific supplier had a history of technical support problems and that the software frequently crashed on large projects, but this would only become apparent months after purchase. Every decision Victoria made with my help seemed good at the moment but created future problems. And she trusted me completely. Meanwhile, my approach with Daniel continued. Slow, subtle, always respectful. We never crossed any line. We were just friends. But I knew he was starting to see me differently. You know, Lisa, he told me one night after an event where Victoria had completely ignored him, you really listen when people talk. It's rare to find that. Everyone deserves to be heard, I replied. And it was true. He deserved someone who actually cared about him, not someone who saw him as an accessory. The fact that I was doing this for revenge, not genuine love? Well, that was a detail he didn't need to know. 12 years after my dismissal, the moment came for the next phase. The seeds I had planted in Victoria's business were starting to germinate. The Miami office? Complete failure. Victoria had invested $500,000 in a market that started slowing down exactly 6 months after she entered. Lost everything. The expensive software. Crashed in the middle of 3 different large projects, causing massive delays. Clients were furious. Some sued for breach of contract. The cheap suppliers I had recommended started delivering inferior quality materials. More lawsuits, more dissatisfied clients. And the contracts with those problematic clauses I had helped draft years ago started being legally challenged. Victoria's empire was starting to crack. Nothing catastrophic yet, just annoying problems starting to accumulate. Money loss here, dissatisfied clients there, costly legal battles. He was getting stressed. I saw it in the lines around her eyes, in how her smiles were forced now. I don't know what's happening, she confessed to me during lunch. It's like everything is going wrong at the same time. Just bad luck, I'm sure, I said, offering false sympathy. Every business goes through rough patches. But I've never had so many problems simultaneously, she insisted. It's almost as if. As if what? She shook her head. Nothing. I'm just being paranoid. Almost. He almost realized. But her ego wouldn't allow her to believe someone could be orchestrating her downfall. Victoria Chin was too powerful, too smart to be deceived like that. Or so she thought. As her business started having problems, her relationship with Daniel was finally reaching its end. They were fighting more. He complained about never seeing her. She complained about him being clingy and needy. That's when I intensified my approach with Daniel. Nothing romantic yet, just a friend who was there when he needed to vent. I don't know how much longer I can do this, he told me one night. We were having coffee at a Starbucks after Victoria had cancelled another dinner with him because of work. 10 years, Lisa. 10 years and I still feel like an option, not a priority. You deserve to be someone's priority, I said softly. Victoria is just going through a difficult period in business now, he said, but the defense was weak. When things calm down. Daniel, I interrupted gently, things won't calm down. People like Victoria always have something more important. There will always be another project, another client, another achievement. You need to decide if you're okay always being second place. He looked at me for a long moment. You think I should break up with her? I think you need to do what's right for you, I replied. But yes, if you ask me honestly, I think you deserve someone who values you, who makes you feel special, who really sees you. It was the first time I directly suggested he should leave Victoria. And I saw in his expressions that my words had hit their mark. 13 years after my dismissal, Daniel broke up with Victoria. It wasn't dramatic. There were no screams or accusations. They just ended. 10 years together ended in a 20-minute conversation where Daniel said he couldn't anymore, and Victoria barely argued because honestly she didn't care enough. She was too busy trying to save her collapsing business to worry about her relationship that had died years ago. I waited an appropriate 2 months before accidentally running into Daniel at a networking event. We talked, laughed. He seemed lighter without the weight of a dead relationship. Want to have dinner sometime? He asked me at the end of the night. I'd love to, I replied, smiling. And we started dating. Lisa Parker and Daniel Mitchell. A successful consultant and a finance executive. A perfect couple on paper. Victoria found out through social media. Daniel posted a photo of us at a dinner. I received a message from her that night. You're dating Daniel? My ex? Didn't know I needed your permission, I replied politely. You broke up months ago. And he's a wonderful person. I hope you're not upset. She was. I could feel her anger through the text. But what could she do? We hadn't done anything wrong. She had ended things with him. We waited an appropriate time. And honestly, Victoria never seemed to care much about him when they were together. But her ego was hurt. Once again, something that was hers was now someone else's. Only this time she couldn't do anything about it. Folks, up to here the revenge was going perfectly. But the final blow was still missing. If you're following this 15-year journey, leave a like and subscribe. In the comments, tell me, are you rooting for me to succeed or think I'm going too far? Where are you watching from? 14 years after my dismissal, I was ready for the final blow. Everything I had built, everything I had planned was converging to this moment. Victoria's business was in serious trouble now. The failed Miami expansion, the client lawsuits, the supplier problems, everything had created a perfect storm of financial and legal problems. But there was more. Much more. Remember how I mentioned I had documented everything during my time as a consultant? All those photos of documents, copies of emails, conversation recordings? Well, while I was doing my consulting, I had also discovered something Victoria had hidden for years. Tax evasion. Not small millions of dollars in unreported revenue over a decade. Money moved through offshore accounts. Bribes paid to public officials to get lucrative contracts. And more interesting, intellectual property theft. Not just from me but from at least 6 other young architects over the years. The same pattern, took their work, presented it as hers, then fired them if they complained. I had documented everything. Every crime, every illegal transaction, every victim. During the last 2 years, I had been passing this material anonymously to the right authorities. The IRS. The Architecture Board. Investigative journalists from respected publications. But I did it slowly, strategically. A document here, an anonymous tip there. I wanted them to seem like independent discoveries, not a coordinated attack. And finally, 14.5 years after Victoria destroyed my life, everything collapsed at once. The IRS announced a complete audit of Chin and Associates. The Architecture Board opened a formal ethics investigation. A major Chicago newspaper published an explosive article, Renowned Architect Accused of Fraud and Intellectual Property Theft. The article had everything. Interviews with former employees Victoria had stolen from. Documents proving tax evasion. Evidence of bribes. A decade of crimes carefully documented. The scandal was huge. Chin and Associates lost all its major clients within weeks. Partners abandoned the firm. Employees resigned. Victoria was formally charged with tax fraud, bribery, and multiple ethical violations. She faced not only massive fines but potentially prison time. Her reputation, the thing she valued above all else, was completely destroyed. From respected architect to exposed criminal. From success story to cautionary tale. I watched it all from the sidelines quietly. Lisa Parker was never mentioned in any of the articles or investigations. Why would I be? I was just a consultant who had worked there years ago. But at a preliminary court hearing, Victoria saw me in the gallery. I had gone just to watch. To see with my own eyes her downfall. She was unrecognizable. The designer suit replaced by something common. The perfectly styled hair now disheveled. The deep stress lines on her face. She looked 10 years older. When her eyes met mine, something passed over her face. Confusion first. Then recognition, not of who I really was, but that I was there watching her destruction. And then, knowledge. On some instinctive, deep level she knew. Not rationally, she would never prove it. But she felt that somehow I was connected to all of this. You, she whispered when they took her in handcuffs from the courtroom after the hearing. She stopped staring at me. It was you. I said nothing. Just smiled. A small smile that only she could see. And I watched as they took her away, screaming now. It was you. I know it was you. But no one knew what she was talking about. No one else even paid attention. Just the outburst of a woman under immense stress. The trials took another 6 months. In the end, Victoria was sentenced to 5 years in prison, millions in fines, and permanent loss of her architecture license. Chin and Associates went bankrupt. Everything she had built over 20 years disappeared. While Victoria was losing everything, my life was flourishing. Daniel and I got married in a small, elegant ceremony. He proposed to me in Paris at a dinner overlooking the Eiffel Tower. It was beautiful. It's strange, I don't love him in the same innocent, passionate way I loved him at 23. That girl died a long time ago. But I like him. He makes me happy in a comfortable, practical way. And part of me wonders if he would be happy knowing the truth. That our relationship started not by fate but by revenge. That every casual encounter was planned. That I manipulated him as carefully as I manipulated Victoria. But he doesn't know. And he never will. My consulting company is incredibly successful now. I have clients across the country. I have an impeccable reputation as a consultant who transforms businesses. I earn more money in a month than I earned in a year as a waitress. I bought a penthouse with a lake view, not as big as Victoria's was, but perfectly adequate. I drive a Tesla. I wear designer clothes. I travel to Europe twice a year. I have everything Victoria had. And she has nothing. 15 years. 15 years since she destroyed my life. 15 years of meticulous planning, unwavering patience, and perfect execution. And finally, justice was served. A few months ago I received a letter. It was from Victoria from prison. I don't know how she got my address. Lisa Parker isn't hard to find for someone determined enough. The letter said, Lisa, or should I say Rachel? I spent months trying to figure out how you did it. How you planned everything. How no one suspected. Took time, but I finally started putting the pieces together. The dates match. The transformation makes sense. And that smile in court. I recognized it. I recognized the hate behind it. You won. You took everything from me just like I took everything from you 15 years ago. I suppose there's a poetic symmetry to that. But here's what you need to understand. I don't regret what I did to you. In that world I was the predator and you were the prey. It was the natural order of things. And now you've become the predator. Congratulations. But don't deceive yourself thinking you're different from me. You're exactly like me now, willing to destroy lives to get what you want. You became the monster you hated. Think about that while you sleep in your comfortable bed with your stolen husband. Victoria. I read the letter 3 times. Then I burned it. He's wrong, of course. I'm not like her. Victoria destroyed people casually for greed and ego. I destroyed one person, a person who deserved it, after 15 years of meticulous work. It's not the same thing, is it? Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. Thinking about all the lies I told. About how I manipulated Daniel. About how calculatedly I destroyed not just Victoria's career, but her entire life. Daniel sleeps next to me, trusting and happy, with no idea that our relationship began as a tool of revenge. And I wonder, was Victoria right? Did I become the monster I hated? But then I remember what she did to me. The desperation I felt. The tears. The humiliation. How she took my dreams and trampled them, smiling. And the doubt disappears. She deserved every second of what happened. Every tear, every loss, every night in a prison cell. 15 years of planning. Worth every second. Today, 3 weeks after receiving that letter, Victoria is still in prison. She has 3 more years ahead. When she gets out, she'll be a 50-year-old woman with no career, no money, no reputation. I, on the other hand, have everything. Success, money, a handsome husband, respect, power. I won. Completely, totally, perfectly. So why do I still wake up some nights thinking about her question? You became the monster you hated. Well, I didn't become that. Because monsters have no reason. Monsters hurt because they can, because they want to. I had a reason. I had justice on my side. Victoria destroyed my life for no reason beyond ego and greed. I destroyed hers because she deserved it. There's a difference. There has to be. Folks, that was my story. 15 years of planning. 15 years of patience. And finally, complete revenge. Some of you will judge me. Will say I went too far. That I should have forgiven and moved on. That destroying someone's life, no matter what they did, is wrong. Others will understand. Will know that sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or society. Sometimes you have to make justice with your own hands. I don't know which group is right. I'm still figuring that out myself. What I know is, Victoria Chin taught me a valuable lesson 15 years ago. She taught me that in this world either you're strong or you're crushed. So I became strong. Stronger than she could imagine. And I used that strength exactly as she taught me, ruthlessly. The irony doesn't escape me. She created her own destroyer. If she had just let a young idealistic architect pursue her career, none of this would have happened. But she chose to destroy. So I destroyed back. If this story made you feel something, approval, horror, understanding, judgment, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone you think needs to hear this. And in the comments, I want to know, would you have done the same? Would you have had the patience to wait 15 years? Or would you have forgiven and moved on? Is revenge justice or just lowering yourself to the level of whoever hurt you? Where are you watching from? New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, London, Miami, or somewhere else? Thank you for listening to my story. All of it. The pain, the planning, the execution, and yes, even the doubt. And remember, be careful who you destroy. Because you never know if they're just waiting 15 years to return the favor. Until the next story.